Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Johnny's shop. I've got my 2014 BMW i3 here. This car has just hit 11 years old, which means that BMW i3s are now officially out of warranty. And California Air Resources Board states, CARB states like California and others, these cars had a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and therefore most things were going to be fixed under that warranty relating to the high voltage system. Now that they're out of that warranty, it's up to us to DIY these cars to keep them on the road. And today I'm going to be doing just that because this car's battery is extremely sad. It is at 90,000 miles. It is an original 60 amp hour battery, and right now at 32 degrees ambient, my range is 30 on the gasometer, but in real life probably closer to 20, and even under the best conditions I can get maybe 40 of the original 80 to 100 miles of range. So leaving for Johnny's, 34 miles of range. We'll see how well it does. I think it's 10 miles there. Today we are going to remove the hybrid battery, or the high voltage battery, and replace it with a 94 amp hour unit out of a used newer car. And this is mostly going to be, I've got the official BMW instructions for removing and replacing the battery. However, I do not know what is actually going to be required to get the 94 amp hour to work. In Germany and Europe, you could actually take your 60 amp hour i3 to the dealership and they would replace the battery for you. Everything in the car can handle it. It's just a question of what programming I'll have to do later because there's not really any documentation on this. There is one gentleman in the Czech Republic who actually did this himself and then set up a shop doing it for other people, and it seemed that all of the issues he had that kept it from being simply plug and play were related to the fact that he used the newer 120 amp hour battery, which actually runs at a slightly higher voltage when fully charged, which caused some issues. I think the 94 amp hour will be plug and play for these older i3s, but that's what we're going to find out today. This isn't quite an easy thing to DIY. First of all, you're going to need a 2-post lift, you're going to need a lift table, you're going to need a laptop with ISTA Plus, and you're going to need an AC machine. If we're in Europe, your car is going to have 1234 YF refrigerant. Here in the US, these all had 134A. I right now am flushing the hoses on this to make sure that there is no non-hybrid compatible oil in it, and then we are going to draw down the AC system all the way, and I'm going to unhook the 12, and I'm going to disable the high voltage system with the cutoff here in the front, and then detach the 12 volt battery. There is another high voltage cutoff in the rear under the panel next to the high voltage inverter, but the BMW instructions do not say to unhook that. They simply say to undo the safety interlock here under this right hand cover, and then once you verified that the car says that it is disabled, then take the negative off the 12 volt battery. But first, I'm going to use this Robinair AC machine to draw down the AC because, of course, there are AC lines going into the battery. This is the high voltage cutoff under the right cover. It is simply a press and pull scenario. I believe you pull down on it, and then you see the on that was visible there changes to off. I heard a bing bong from inside the car, and if we look inside, high voltage system deactivated. There we go. Okay, so let's turn the car back off, give that a minute to go to sleep, and then we're going to pull the negative off of the 12 volt battery. All right. Now that the lines are flush, the refrigerant recovery can actually begin. I think this is probably going to be the longest part of that process. There's where our high side and low side connect to. Obviously, if you have your frunk still, you'll have to remove it. This car did not have any of the frunk plastics when I got it. And then the negative cable is off the battery, and I kind of pulled it down here where it couldn't possibly spring back up and touch the battery. Also, I will probably want to put a zip tie through here. You're supposed to use like a padlock or something just to make sure that this doesn't get bumped and reconnected, because that could potentially intermittently energize the high voltage system, and 400 volts is not something to be trifled with. Once the car's in the air, on, of course, the BMW jacking points, hopefully yours are still intact, the aluminum part that we can see is the entire battery. As you can see, we've got rows of e-Torques on either side. On this side is the high voltage main disconnect. That's the last one we're going to disconnect, but first we have on this side the low voltage and communications disconnect, and this is for the electronic expansion valve, and then of course these two AC lines. This is the one thing that will be different, that could be different battery to battery. This is the one compatibility issue. If your car has heated seats, the battery will look like this. If your car does not have heated seats, then you have a heat pump system, which is a different battery completely. You can put one battery in the other, but you'll have to fully disassemble the battery and replace the entire internal cooling system, swap it from one to the other, because heat pump cars do not have built-in electronic heaters for the battery modules. They rely on the actual heat pump itself. So if yours looks like this and you have heated seats, that's your main point of compatibility. And for that we use eTorx E10 for these air conditioning guys are an E10. And then there's also this, they call it a bonding screw. It's a ground screw. It's got a real fancy name for no reason. Apparently these can corrode fairly frequently, and BMW actually has procedures for dealing with it. If it snaps off when it comes out, you buy another one. It's a self-tapper, and you drill a pilot hole right here on this dimple on the other side that they actually already supply for you to drill and tap and install a new grounding screw. Why it doesn't ground through all the mounting screws, I'm not sure, but that's apparently a very important piece. That looks like a regular T10. Let's see. The service manual simply says to remove this. It does not really say what all is involved. Looks like there's a little like plug end with nothing in it that acts as a safety interlock, so I got to remove that, and then this pulls out. One thing that I do know is once you start removing this, you cannot push it back on or you'll break it. You have to remove it all the way before you can put it back on. So I think I'm going to need a pick to get that guy off, and then we can get our last connection off. Of course, these extremely straightforward. Push here on this one, push here on this one, and these two pull straight out. That's what you're left with. That's this side taken care of. I'm going to figure this side out, and then I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so as I expected, this guy, you push down on here, and I pulled with some pliers, and that came out. It is electrical. It looks like it shorts two pins together, and then that will let us pull. That's crunchy. I can't believe there's not like a cover over this. Pull this, and then I believe we pull out. I'm not sure if that's all the way. It doesn't look like all the way, so I might need to. Nope, that's all the way. There's a little piece of plastic there that is now blocked, so I think I just need to try harder. So if you've ever done a radio on a late model BMW, this works very similar to the quad lock connector, sort of. It's not self-cinching, but you slide that and then you pull it straight back. There's 3 tabs here. Required a good bit of wiggling because, first of all, look at all those contacts, and also, as I said, there's really nothing keeping road grime around this connection, which is kind of a design failure in my opinion. I'd have at least put a little piece of chloroplast here or something. I mean, they have this little arrow thing. Could have just extended it back. What the hell, guys? But that is disconnected. Our grounding bolt is disconnected. Now it's time to get the table and then probably lower it down and then undo all of these E12s. Whole bunch of E12 bolts, and then the battery's out of the car. I got the lift table set up. What looks to be right, the actual BMW instructions are quite a bit different, but they use a different lift table. They have these locating pins that you would put here on either side, but I don't really have anywhere to attach the locating pins that would work for that, so I'm simply going to ignore that part and set it straight down on top of 4 pads, and then it'll be out. BMW, of course, will sell you an incredibly expensive and specific lifting tool for these that uses eyelets in 4 locations here around the edge and then lifts it up. We just used 4 dudes. Thanks, Johnny. So here's the new battery. This is a 94 amp hour battery out of a 2017 and up BMW i3. This battery came out of a car with 110,000 miles on it. We got it from a salvage yard in Texas. Link to them below. They were extremely nice, very easy to work with, and they accommodated me showing up on their day off to come and pick up this battery at 5 p.m. on a Saturday. So now we've got it here. So now we just slide it under, lift it up, bolt it back in, recharge the AC, and hopefully Bob's your uncle. But we'll see. All right, batteries in. All of the e-torques around are tightened to 28 Newton meters, which is, what'd you say, 30 foot-pounds? About 20 foot-pounds. So not a whole lot for something that's a structural member of the car, but we're gonna get the table out of here, lift this back up, and torque those. And then all of these connectors here are pretty straightforward. Put the AC lines back in, they only go in one location. These connectors only go in one location, push them till they click. And then I'll probably try and film putting the high voltage connector back on, because there might be a trick to that. We'll see when we get there. Again, BMW's documentation is pretty unclear on this. Like removing it, it just says remove it, and putting it back in, it just says put it back in. So thanks, BMW. All right, that is tough to get lined up. These big old cables are, I might need both hands for this. The cables are thick and keeping me from getting it on there evenly. Looks like I don't think I want to pull that out, because that might break if I pry on it. We did get, I didn't get my bonding screw tightened down completely. I love that they call it like a common bonding something something. I'm sure it's a word that's like 50 characters long in German, but it's just a ground screw.
Yeah, and there's like 100 others.
Yeah. Well, no. Because these are going into nutserts in a composite chassis. That's it. Yeah, because that's the thing. You can't just ground, when I installed my amplifier in here for my subwoofer, you can't just ground to any screw you find, because only some of them actually connect back to an earthing point. So I bet somewhere in here, there's some metal there that actually goes to something. Oh, well, this is a subframe, a steel subframe, it feels like, so I don't know why these wouldn't count, but I guess that one does. Who knows? Maybe these are nut clips. Oh.
They probably want it a little better than
a nut clip. Yeah, because that probably has to handle all of the batteries, is probably spec'd to handle the whole battery's current if something incredibly catastrophic happens. And then I got these all plugged back in and good, so. All right. That actually went together really nice because of the thickness of the cable. Once I kind of used both hands and got it lined up, it just popped right in, push this guy in, and then this connector goes there, and now the car can come down. Got my bonding screw torqued, so now I just put Johnny's table away, get this thing back down, hook up the 12 volt, charge the AC, re-energize the high voltage system, and then I'm going to hook up my laptop with ISTA Plus and clear all the codes before we do anything else, because I'm sure that this process sets quite a few codes from things being missing.
Is this charged?
This came out of a car that was hit in the front Airbags didn't deploy, but it was enough body damage to total the car. They said they drove it around the yard. So it was charged enough to do that.
Okay.
My concern is how long has it sat? How long has it self-discharged? I doubt I'll have enough charge to get home, so I'll probably be running the Rex and then charging it once I get home, and then we'll do a range test once it's all charged. So, almost there. Almost across the finish line. In the interest of the health of the compressor and whatnot and not throwing more codes, definitely want to charge the AC before hooking anything back up in case the car tries to run the AC as a part of some self-test. Unfortunately, I forgot to vacuum first, so we're recovering again and then vacuuming and then charging. This is definitely... I've spent more time staring at this machine than the entire rest of this process combined, so this is definitely the one part that makes this take a while, but it is 12:40. I got here at 10. The AC's probably been an hour or more of this, because when did you show up?
10:40.
Yeah, at 10:40. Yeah, Daniel showed up at 10:40 and this was still going, and then I've also been filming, which makes it take longer, so this is actually pretty quick process, especially if you can do other things while this is going, work on other cars or whatever if you're a shop. AC system's charged. I could find no specific instructions for whether to hook the 12-volt system up first or to reconnect the high voltage system, but considering that we unhooked that and then that, I'm going to assume we want to reverse that order, so I'm going to put our 12-volt connection back on. Spicy? I don't think I was even remotely aiming the camera, but hey, we got noises. We got bings and bongs. And now we're gonna have like 15 errors because not every module woke back up at the same time and got pissed off it couldn't see the other ones. Now, this thing, which you should have a lock in there, simply... I think that takes 2 hands. There you go. Yep. Same as you take it out. Push the little tongue, push it back up, and that re-energizes the high voltage system. At this point, we're done in here, and now we're going to take our laptop running ISTA Plus and an Ethernet cable. This is exactly what it sounds like. This is an Ethernet cable that has an OBD2 connector on the end. For simplicity's sake, I like to use a standalone USB to Ethernet adapter. That way, any settings that sometimes you have to change network settings to do certain things with these. That way they stay with this connector instead of, altering the connection built into your laptop. It also means I can plug it into an Android phone if I want, if I have an Android app that does stuff. For F-chassis BMWs and newers, this is what you want. So I'm going to fire up ISTA Plus, and we're just going to start by clearing all of the codes in the car, and after that we see what happens. Okay, I've got ISTA up, so now I guess I need to turn on the car's MEs. Hey, look at that. 96 miles of range, 90 miles of range. It's figuring its life out. 89 and dropping. So it knows there's a battery there, and it's doing all of the 12-volt stuff. Oh yeah, that's right. These cars won't turn on unless the door is shut. And I think it has to be in a ready state for ISTA to connect to the DME. 97 miles, and it's not even full. All right. Well, that is incredibly promising. So now I've got ISTA open. I'm going to go full screen here and see if I can remember how to use ISTA. I think I go to Operations, Read Out Vehicle Data, and then do Complete Identification here in the lower right. This is ISTA Plus version 4.39.20. Alright, so there it is. There's my VEN ENET setup connection. And now we wait for it to read out. This does take a while because it is going to query every single module in this car. And I'm not even sure if this is necessary. Like I said, this is the part that nobody really talks about. The later, bigger 120 amp hour batteries, when they're fully charged, the voltage is slightly higher than the car's safety threshold, which causes the car to throw a bunch of errors because it thinks the battery is overcharged and in danger of being damaged, so it'll limit your power if you fully charge a 120 amp hour battery in here without doing some programming first. However, the 94 does not charge that to that high of a voltage, so I think they just work. I'm not sure if I need to code my VIN into the battery management module. That's the thing that I don't quite understand. Like if you replace your turn signal stock or like your light switch or any module in this car that has the VIN in it, it'll work, but it'll throw codes in the background for being not coded to the car. So that's just the sort of thing that I'm kind of curious about, and we'll figure that out here once this is done doing its vehicle identification. Well, it finally finished scanning. We can see here we have a few ECUs with fault memory. Some of these I know about. CAFIS has an issue with the heater. That's just the camera there for like lane departure and stuff. EME, that's our electrical machine electronics. That is the motor's computer. I think BDC is the battery, body domain controller, electrical machine electronics. Go away, go away, go away. Charging electronics, battery management electronics, there we go. So we'll clear all these codes. That is just a missing ECU because the factory amp isn't there anymore. So now we go to display fault memory in the lower right. And we have all of our codes. What do we have here? High voltage safety, well, yeah, it was, there we go, SME, control unit not encoded for the vehicle, wrong miles. So that is probably what I need to do. I need to encode that. I think what I want to do first, though, is delete fault memory and get rid of all of this stuff, because what ISTA will do is it will take those fault codes and it will generate a repair plan, because ISTA also has, you know, the ability to code things, and it has a service manual built into it, so it will show you the appropriate steps, the appropriate codings and whatnot based on the errors that it finds. It's actually a really, really nice system. Apparently there's a newer system than ISTA that's even better, but any of you who are familiar with E46s using INPA and stuff and having to hold up your phone and translate it from German, this is just the best thing ever to me. I don't think this works with E46s though. I think this will only go back to like E90s and whatnot, but that's fine. Before I click this, I just want to show where I'm at in case this is actually what works. Under vehicle management, I went to control unit replacement. After replacement, scroll down to SME, clicked the checkbox over here. It took it a minute to respond, and now we're going to display a measures plan. And it's upset because my amplifier is missing, so it thinks I want to put a new amp in. Well, I'm going to need ESYS or ISTA-P installed in order to actually finish programming that correctly. But let's key on, put it in reverse, and see if it moves. Let's turn off the parking brake and see if it moves. It does. We have movement. Coding the car turned out to be the biggest unknown and the biggest challenge of this project. Standard disclaimer, I am providing this section mostly as a reference, and I'm cutting out a lot of checking and double checking that was done that I didn't fully understand. This is the series of actions that resulted in my battery working, but is very possibly not applicable to your or any other cars given modifications that were made to my vehicle order. I definitely recommend joining the i3 Discord for enlightening technical discussion around battery swaps and other high-level exciting developments in the i3 world. If my factory amplifier was still in place, I believe ISTA Plus may have been able to handle this whole thing, which would have been an extremely straightforward process by comparison, as we saw earlier where I was basically just hitting next in ISTA. But with the help of the eminently knowledge Deltoid, I've never said his name out loud, Deltoid Delta from the i3 Engineers Group, I fired up ESYS to get my battery coded. First up, we connect, choose main series I001, connection type gateway, and select the latest available version of the software. Then, in comfort mode under TAL calculating, we read the vehicle order and save it to an XML. In the ESYS settings, we went to options and unchecked update VCM after TAL execution. Then we went to read ECU without smart actuators and save the SVT actual to another XML file called i3 actual. This read out all the information in every electronic control unit in the car, including their coding, bootloader, software, etc. Next, we use ESYS to compare the existing data in the car to the data in our currently loaded PSDZ data. In this case, they're pretty much the same because I previously used this PSDZ data to update all of the modules in the car a few months ago. So the only thing that should be different is the battery module since it's from another car. Under SVT target, we changed the calculation strategy to complete flash, set the iStep target to the latest version, and hit calculate. The list will now show all of the differences. In this case, the battery module, the SME, has different software red than from what is current in blue. HWEL is black, which means the hardware itself is recognized as compatible with this car by ESYS and does not need changed. Next, we go to SVT update and save i3 target.xml and then do a TAL calculation and save that as TAL target.xml. Then we flip over to expert mode, go to TAL processing, and we select the TAL target XML, SVT target XML, and the FA original XML in their respective fields, and check software availability to make sure our PSDZ data has the required files to make the changes that are the difference between our target and actual. At this point, it's important to make sure there's a 12-volt charger on the car since every module in the vehicle will be put into programming mode simultaneously, which could result in an abnormally large power draw from the 12-volt battery, and if the battery dies, then you brick your car. But at this point, we hit start, but the programming failed, so we went to parameters and checked deactivate HTTP transmission and tried again, which also failed. Now, the reason for this is because my car is a 2014, and in 2014, DC fast charging was optional, and my car does not have it. That means my car is a configuration that never existed. 94 amp hour cars never had no DC fast charging. I'm not entirely sure if this is something that ISTA would be able to resolve. So if you don't have DC fast charging and you want to put in an upgraded battery, you might have to do some of this advanced ESYS stuff. So to resolve my impossible car configuration, we opened up the first XML we made that contained the original vehicle order, the current vehicle order, in Notepad++ and tried a few combinations. But eventually what worked was changing my type key from 1Z43 to 1Z83, which is derived from the VIN of the car I got the battery from. And then we changed the time criteria from 0714 to 0717 to give it a 2017 production date, which is when the 94 amp hour batteries existed. Then we loaded the XML that was created at the beginning by reading out the ECUs, set the SVT target iStep to one from 2017, in this case I001-17-33-500, calculated an SVT target, and then saved that resulting file as i3 target 94 amp hour.xml, and also saved a new TAL calculation as i3 TAL target 94 amp hour.xml. Then we went back to expert mode, selected all the new XMLs that we created. This results in a list of ECUs that are different between our 94 amp hour 2017 car's FA and my car's actual FA. So I deselect every ECU except the SME2 and hit start to begin the flash just to the SME instead of flashing the entire car to 94 amp hour 2017 spec, which is not necessary. Once the flash finished, we reread the ECUs and saw no changes necessary in the SME, so I unhooked the 12-volt charger, disconnected ESYS, and loaded up ISTA Plus to do a little bit of housekeeping. If all this was done in ISTA Plus, again, it would do all this housekeeping automatically, but basically there's just going to be a whole lot of codes, so I cleared all of them, ended up with one remaining code hanging out in the EDME that could have been a few things. We did a little bit of looking around, and we think it was just because it was like 30 degrees outside, and so it was a code for temporarily derating the EDME power because it was cold out. Righto, well, it should be good now. It's been on the charger for a while. About a half hour ago, I did a cabin preconditions, so the battery might be warmed up. Yeah, saying 68 degrees. It's about freezing out. Doesn't look like we're getting any reduced performance, so it's not that cold. I'm going to reduce our tripometer. We're in comfort mode. If I go to Eco Pro, quite a bit more range. If I go to Eco Pro Plus, tons of range. But I'm going to stick to comfort, and I'm going to stay comfortable, 70 degrees. So this is definitely not going to be a best case for range, but it's going to be a realistic case for range in coldish weather. I got to go to Tyler's. It's going to be half 60 miles an hour and half 40 miles an hour with stops every mile. So that's also going to be kind of a rough drive cycle, but I've reset our trip. We're going to see how close to 67 miles of range we actually get. I think a cat just ran under the car, so that's fun. We're now cruising down the highway with the world's worst distance following active cruise control in the world active. And the car feels fine. You're not going to see, or I'm not going to see, or there isn't going to be any performance benefit to just swapping the battery like this. You can see on the dash on the right side there are some gray bars that go left to right, charge and e-power, and those show your available charge and power. If the battery is cold or in a fault condition, if the battery's in a fault condition, it will restrict that. So if it's really, really cold out, you'll only get half of your regen on the charge side, and you'll get a few bars off of your e-power. Or if you've depleted your battery fully, like below the level that the Rex will come on or something like that. I've seen this thing with the old battery go into those fault conditions before, but you're very aware of it. So the summary here is that if you have all of your bars on the e-power side, your i3 is just as fast as it would be with any other battery, except maybe the 120 amp hour battery will give you a tiny bit of extra voltage on the top end, so maybe that is 1 or 2 extra kilowatts. Other than that, things are great. Weirdly, my efficiency seems to be better. I reset my efficiency once I got on the highway because I forgot to do it earlier. I've been getting about 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour, which isn't awful for this at 65 miles an hour. I mean, it is kind of a tall vehicle. A lot of people are going to scoff at spending this much money to get, 65, 70 miles of range estimate in the winter, but for what I use this car for, I mean, I was scared to take it anywhere with the old battery in the winter, 20 miles, maybe 25 miles of range. Now, the car is good enough to be my around town car for the foreseeable future. I have no real reason to drive anything else. I plug it in, it goes. I don't have to go to a gas station. It's comfortable. It's got decent tech. It's got one of the coolest interiors in any car ever. And yeah, I just really like it. I put a lot of work into it, so I'm pretty attached to this goofy little orange nugget. And also, the facelift cars didn't get as good of colors. They got that one blue, and then a bunch of kind of dull colors. Galvanic gold was kind of neat, but come on, this orange is great. The blue's really good too. The orange and the blue are just top. They do look kind of, I guess they look kind of cool as a panda, but everyone calls them a panda, and that's kind of strange. Something I've noticed is that since I've gotten on the highway, my range estimate has actually gone up. It was 66 or 65 miles when we left. I've gone 8 miles and it's at 63 now. It was down to 60 and then it went back up. So I think the battery control module is still calibrating, or I think it's the combi that does those calculations. So I think the combi is still calculating and adjusting to this larger battery, but we'll see. As an addendum to what I said about the car not being faster, one thing this does let me do with the 94 amp hour is now I can code in sport mode, which was in the i3S. 94, I think 94 and 120 amp hour batteries could be had in the i3S. That gives you extra power and torque. I need to triple check and make sure I have the upgraded motor mount first, because there were plastic motor mounts and there were metal motor mounts. I'm assuming at 80,000 miles this has probably had a motor mount done before, and I think it's the metal one, but I need to check that. But then a very similar process to what we had to do for the battery will give this car that sport mode, and that also it gives you different torque delivery. I think it gives you different regen and traction control, or something that's a little bit improved as well. And then I can get a little silly with it. Maybe put some coilovers on this car, or some Bilsteins and springs. It needs something. The suspension is absolutely haggard. But now that this thing will suit my needs, I feel more comfortable just kind of dumping some money into it beyond what is, objectively reasonable or sensible, which would have been the bare minimum. I mean, what would have been reasonable was to not put any money in this at all and just run it around on the Rex. But I don't want to do that, because I like this thing and I want to drive it for at least another 2 or 3 years until the Rivian R3 comes out. That might make me give this up. Anyway, onward to Tyler's. Well, I've got to go take care of the cats, but so far results are promising. It was about 17, 18 miles to get here, and my range estimate dropped by 5 or 6 miles. So I pinged the Discord, and the range calculations are done in the combi, which is the instrument cluster, and so it probably is still sort of rolling off of estimates from the old battery, so it'll take it a while to catch up and get a bit more accurate. However, in the meantime, how about this? What we have here is the only 2 extended range EVs ever made, and that's going to be a controversial statement because the the Chevy Volt is a very controversial entry into the stable of extended range EVs, but a lot of people disqualify it because up in certain circumstances the front wheels are directly powered on the highway or whatever. I personally consider it an extended range EV because you can run an EV mode all the time and never turn on the engine. But whatever. There's a Fisker Karma. There's a BMW i3. If I had more time, I would probably get the Karma down and do a photo shoot, but the i3 is also dirty, so maybe another time. Yet again, just another super cool car with a super cool interior and a super cool powertrain. And a Beetle. I don't know.
For anyone interested in Neelix's update, here she is. How you doing, girl? Yep, still happy, still healthy, but look at this. Her food bowl is completely empty. Let me fix that. There you go. All full now. You're welcome. Her son Q is around here somewhere. Up, there he is. He's a little bit skittish around me still, probably because the last time I was here I took him to the vet. Q! Q, where you at? Hi. How you doing, buddy? Yeah? Cute. Stay out of trouble. Going to leave, and now my range estimate is up to 64 again after going 14 miles. So that's interesting. Also, I do have to correct something that I've said in previous videos. I've talked about preconditioning these cars and how that doesn't work through the app for this car anymore because there are no more 3G towers, and it turns out I am actually mistaken, sort of, on that point. There's another thing you can do where you can recode the bottom button on your key fob. On foreign markets, it is a diamond. On US market cars, it is the alarm button. And you can recode that guy for a long press to be cabin preheating. And preheating is distinct from battery preconditioning. I guess it's called climatizing. Sorry, you can climatize the interior, which is distinct from battery preheating. And it used to be that doing this would only climatize the car, not also preheat or precondition the battery. However, literally a couple of days ago, in the same extremely helpful Discord chat that has been helping me throughout this entire process, we've done some testing. Now that it's cold out, they've done some testing and determined that the cars do actually precondition the battery now with the diamond button. They also do it, they'll also start preheating as soon as you unlock the car. So that did not used to work like that. It was kind of tribal knowledge that it did not work like that. So that has been changed in some update to the cars. So yet another cool instance of a car getting better as it ages because they added some helpful functionality, and also a good reason to look into updating your car. BMW calls them iStep updates. You can do that through ISTA, I believe. If you have an ICOM interface, you can do it through eNet, but it's not advisable. I did it through eNet, but it's not advisable. So I'm going to take the long way home. I'm going to do a bit faster driving. I'm probably going to be highway the entire time, and we'll see how many miles until I get bored and go home. And then we'll check back in. I thought of the other thing I wanted to say. Financial sense of this sort of thing. I would not buy an i3 with the idea of doing this. This sort of project makes sense if you own an i3 and it met your needs, but due to battery degradation or maybe your needs change a little bit, you're looking to replace it. At that point, spending more than the car is worth to make it meet your needs makes sense, because more than the car is worth is still going to be less than the purchase price of any other EV. And you'll know your car's history a lot better than you'll know the history of some random car you pick up. I mean, if your i3 is getting up there and you find the parts to do a new battery and, hey, throw an AC compressor at it while you're at it, and it costs $6,000, what else are you going to buy for $6,000? And then when you're done, you know your car's good. And it's probably going to continue to be good for at least another 100,000 miles, probably. I'm not down yet to 50% state of charge, and I still have 40 miles left, so it'll probably be dark by the time I end up going home. Well, it was a convenient time for me to hop off the highway, so I went ahead and came home after 61.6 miles of mostly highway cruising at 65 to 70 miles an hour. As you can see, we averaged 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour, and we have an estimated remaining range of 16 miles. If that were to be true, that would mean our total range was 78 miles. And for the last 30, 40 miles I drove, that was fairly consistent with reality. It hovered around estimating 70-ish miles of total range. 31 degrees out currently, and our state of charge is 21%. Drink up, little buddy. So there we have it. That's my adventures with replacing the battery and upgrading my 2014 BMW i3. Hopefully this was informative. I don't expect this as a project for everybody, but maybe if you have a trusted indie mechanic, you could show this to them. And maybe this can become slightly more commonplace way to keep as many of these cars on the road as possible. Make use of parts that end up in junkyards, They don't make any more of these, though they did make a decent amount, and hopefully we can keep enough of them going for quite a while. Of course, huge thanks to everyone involved in helping me get this done. Huge thank you to my friend Joe for taking me down to Dallas, my buddy Daniel for helping me with the battery swap itself and dealing with the battery afterwards. Of course, thanks to Johnny for letting me monopolize one of his lifts for a day and making him do physical labor. I know my arms and legs are sore as hell because I am a weak little soy boy. And huge thanks to the i3 Engineers Discord, as I said earlier in the programming section. And thanks to all of you for watching and helping me do silly stuff like this.